Hello everybody, this is Mr. Bowen. So today we're going to be looking at relations and functions in math. And this function idea is a big topic that's going to run through most of the next several math courses you're going to take. So before we do that, we're going to talk about relations though, because that's kind of the precursor. And a relation is any mapping of an input to an output in math. Okay, so any mapping of an input to an output. Okay, so there's a couple ways we look at that. We're going to look at a few of them here in a second, and then after that we're going to turn those into functions. So the classic one is an XY table, where X's are going to be our inputs and Y's are our outputs. So say I have 0, 1, 3, 4, whatever. Actual numbers don't matter too much. And then, so I have to tie 0 to a number and 1 to a number and 3 to a number, etc. So maybe my outputs are 2, 4, 6, 8. So in this case, 0 is tied to 2, 1 is tied to 4, 3 is tied to 6, and 4 is tied to 8. Okay, so that's an XY table. We also see things that are actually called maps, where we have these two ovals, and we'll have numbers in here. So let's 1, 2, 4, and let's go with 3, 7. Now with these ones on the tables, they're always going to have the same number for all of them. On a map, that is not necessarily the case. It's because if you don't have repeat numbers here. So if I have 1 going to 3 and 2 going to 3, I'm not going to write 3 twice. I'm just going to draw 2 arrows to tie them together here. And you don't actually draw the arrows here, by the way, but you will draw arrows here to tie those. So this is saying 1's going to 3, 2's going to 3, and 4 is going to 7. Okay, so this is a map. This one is a table. And then the other big one is a graph. Okay, so if I'm looking at a graph, that's when you have your normal kind of XY coordinates there, right? Cool. Those will come in later, but I'll just go ahead and throw them in now. So if I have a graph, I can look at any graph here. Let's just do a line, I think. Might be the easiest way. So with graphs, it's a little weird because we're used to seeing them already, but we're not always thinking about how they're related. So this is saying this x coordinate, maybe I'll call it 2, is then tied with this y coordinate of 4. Okay, so 2 is matched to 4 because they go up, they kind of cross-reference to a single point. Or over here, my x-coordinate at -3 is maybe tied to -1. So x would go up and down until we hit the graph and then go over to figure out which y it's tied to. So those are relations. Okay, so these are all relations. A function is a special type of relation. So a function is a relation such that, so this has to be true, so it's a relation with this specific thing. So it's a relation such that each element or each number of the input, which we'll put a name to later, so for each input number, connects to at most one number in the output. Which sounds confusing, so I'm going to use these same 3 ideas here to show you what I mean by that. Okay? And we'll just go ahead and use them in order. So a table So I'm going to show you two tables, one that is a function and one that is not. Okay? We just have to figure out which one's which. So let's say I have the numbers 0, 1, 1, 3. And I'll use the same ones here just for comparison's sake, but it doesn't matter which numbers you use. So in this one, I'm going to have, let's go with 3, 2, 4, 2. Okay, and over here, I'm going to use 6, 7, 7, 8. No, that's wrong. 6, 7, 9, 8. There we go. All right. So looking at these, let's compare them. So for what I mean is I need each element of the input, so each number over here, to go to one element of the output. Okay. So looking at this one, I'm just going to do this one at a time. 0 is going to 3, and there's no other zeros. Fine. 1's going to 2, but I have another one, and this one's going to 4. So 1's actually going to two numbers, 1 to 2 and 1 to 4. So this is not a function. Okay, not a function. What about this one? Take a second and look at this one and let me know what you think. What did you get? Do you think this is a function or it's not? Okay, if you said this is also not a function, you are correct. Sort of tricked you a little bit on that one, but that's okay. So looking at this one, we have another set of 1s, 1, 7, and 1 going to 9. So in order for this to be a function, these would have to be going to either have no repeats over here, or would have to both be going to the same number. So if I change this to 1, 9, and 1, 9, that's fine. Even though it's listed twice, they're going to the same number, so they're still okay. All right, what about a map? I personally think maps are the easiest one to see this on. So if I have a map, and I have the numbers 1, 3, 4, 7, and 2, 6, 8. Okay. Looking at this one, if I have arrows that do this, is this a function? Okay, let's go through one at a time and find out. 1 is going to 6, and that's it. 3 is going to 8, and that's it. 4 is going to 2, and that's it. And 7 goes to 6, which is that it. So this is a function. Okay? Even though 1 and 7 are both going to 6, that's fine, because it says for each element of the input connects to one element of the output. So each of these 4 are going to one number. The fact that they're going to multiple ones are going to the same number doesn't matter. So 1 going to 7, or 6 and 7 going to 6 is fine. If we want to have an issue, I'm not sure why we would want to have an issue, but if we were to have an issue, it would have to look like this. I would need to have 1 going to 2 separate numbers, so 2 arrows coming out of it. Since each one of these only has 1 arrow, I'm good. But 1 has 2 arrows, that's a problem. Okay? Okay. All right. Last but not least, we're going to look at graphs really quickly. And these ones take some practice, but after you get a handle on them, they're really not that bad. So if I have a graph, okay, all I'm looking for is something called the vertical line test. So I'm going to, actually we'll do 2 graphs, see the difference between them. Okay, so I'm going to take a vertical line, so let me get a straight line here, and I'm going to drag it from left to right and see if I ever have an x value that hits my graph twice, because if it does, that means I have 2 y values. Let's start on this bottom one. If I drag this whole thing from left to right, does it ever hit my red graph twice? No. it only ever hits my red graph once. So this passes the vertical line test and is a function. Up here, if I drag right there, and it doesn't matter where it is, if it happens ever, it fails the vertical line test. So like right here, I'm hitting my graph here and here. Okay, so that fails the vertical line test and is not a function. Okay, so those are the idea between relations and functions. There's a lot going on there, so I'm sorry to throw so much at you at once, but that's really what you're looking for, and you're going to use one of those three examples to try and figure out if it's a function or not.